treasure here in Winchester. As Julie said, I'm Ron Weisinger. I have my own consulting company. For almost 20 years, I worked at companies that you may have heard of. Reebok, Brookstone, Bristol Myers Squibb, Millipore, Life Science Company. And right now, I'm probably in a situation similar to a lot of you. I'm looking for my next job too. My position was impacted due to the economy back in May, so I set up the consulting company because I do have a variety of skills that I can offer, including the leadership coaching certification, which enables me to go out and sell myself as an individual contributor. But before I get into some of the agenda, I want to tell you a couple of stories. These are true anecdotes, and I'll give you a sense of flavor of the types of things I'm going to be covering. About 8 years ago, I was looking for a job in human resources, and I saw on the internet a job posting at a company that was in the pharmaceutical biotech space. And if anybody knows about that space and about human resources, there's a tagline at the bottom of every job posting, 100% of the time: industry experience requirement. I have it. I've been into some products, I've been into specialty retail, I work at Cigna, the big insurance company. I didn't have it. And I wanted to break in because if you know human resources, if you're in the Boston, Cambridge market, the biotech, the pharma space is really, that's the hot place to be. So, at the bottom of the ad on the internet, it had the recruiter's name. Actually, it didn't have a first name, just her initial and her last name. I'm saying to myself, how do I differentiate myself? How do I even get in the door if it's a requirement I have it? So I did some research, and I was able to find out her phone number. And I called her, and she picked up the phone. And I said, Kate, my name is Ron Weisinger. I'm interested in the HR opportunity. I have just one question for you, if I could take 2 minutes of your time, because if I'm not a good candidate, I don't even want to waste your time by sending you a resume that you have to track, and you got to file, you got to report on it, and I'm so networked that if I'm not the right fit, maybe I can help identify other candidates for you. And she said, that's the question. I said to her, is industry experience an absolute must-have, or are you also interested in speaking with talent? And she said, tell me about yourself. We spoke for 10 minutes on the phone, and then she said, I'd like to do a full phone interview tomorrow. We did that. Then she said, in 2 days, I want you to come in and interview with somebody. And I did. I got the job. And that told me something about differentiating myself. Let me fast forward to something that actually happened in the last week, this week. I'm in a networking group of HR people, and a lot of different functional specialties out there. You can find these networking groups. We meet every couple of weeks. And there's a big financial services company in Boston that had posted a really, really good HR opportunity. And one of the guys in the networking group told me that he had just gotten a call and his phone interview scheduled for last Friday. And when I get home, and there's an email, and they want to speak to me on Monday, which is great. And Sunday, we both get emails saying they filled the job from the inside. Thank you for your interest. So I see him on Monday. We talked about it, and he's really angry. How could he do that? You know, they don't have any regard for us, and it's probably just a sham position anyhow. I'm never going to apply to them. We told everybody not to use them. Okay. I went home. I got on the phone, and I called the crew and left the following voicemail message. I said, Kathy, I got your message. While I'm naturally disappointed, as an HR professional myself, I really know the value of giving people internally rotational opportunities. You keep the institutional knowledge, it creates a pipeline. And I really have to applaud a decision like that because I truly understand it. And it occurred to me that at some point, you're such a large organization, you're going to have other opportunities. Would it be good if both of us continue to talk? and maybe had a follow-up conversation in that event. Left a message. An hour later, I got an email from her scheduling a phone. Her position doesn't even exist. So the moral of that story, the lesson is the mood you choose and how you respond to things that occur to you in the job search process and how you make lemonade and lemons says a lot about your success. And there's one other common thread, which is a big theme in what I'm going to talk about. From the first story to the second. Anybody want to take a guess on what it is?
Sell yourself.
Sell myself. That's certainly part of it. Following up. Networking, absolutely. But in both cases, I was attending to the relationship. And that's what networking is all about. It's all about relationships. Now, I'm going to talk to you some more about how you build those relationships, but it's sort of connects back to, and some people here are currently employed, some people aren't, and we're taping, and we're not going to be panning the audience, and we're not using last names. But whether you're currently working or not, imagine for a second that you're out of work and you're looking for a job. Ask yourself this question: what's my own personal definition of success for the next 30 days? Think about that for a second. Anybody want to offer theirs? How would you define success in the job search over the next 30 days?
Defining who your network is.
Defining who your network is. Good. What
Who
else?
you know in the field.
Who you know?
Yeah.
Anybody else want to offer?
To obtain actual one, just maybe one or two face-to-face interviews.
Take 1 or 2 face-to-face interviews. Why do you think I'm asking that question to start with? What I was going to say is, if you don't know where you're going and where you're getting there, it's all the same thing. So you have to have a plan. I've done a lot of coaching, and when I ask this question, the response that I often get is to get a job. I'll take a step back and say, how much control do you have over that as an outcome? Very little, really. There's all sorts of factors, starting with you don't make the hiring decision. And so the question was trying to get at the fact that you don't want to set up unrealistic expectations for yourself, because then it's easy to feel as if you're failing. When I was really in full court press mode, my personal objective was networking. And I was actually meeting in person with an average of 2 people a day, 5 days a week, because it's a full-time job to do that. It really is a full-time job. So, I asked you to fill out an index card with some information. I wanted to get a sense of how many of us are working, how many aren't. We have a mix here. Your functional areas, and they range from supply chain, I think, to finance, getting into, I think, sheet metal construction, probably getting that along. Most of what I'm talking about is really focused on exempt professional career track positions. Not because other positions are less meaningful, that's where my experience is. Hopefully, if you're looking for a position that isn't in that area, there's still going to be some takeaways that you can use. But let me tell you some of the questions that I got. To the question I had asked, one key takeaway that you hope to get: how to find leads at good companies. We'll talk about that. New tools unknown to me to find a job. Hopefully, cover some of that. How to market myself. Yes. By the way, what am I doing right now?
Marketing yourself. That's a good song.
I'm marketing myself. And what's it costing me?
Your time.
And what's the biggest commodity I have right now?
Yourself, your
My
relationship.
time. Yeah, and I'm building relationships. Strategies to help the job search, use of new technology methods. We'll talk a little about that. I don't hold myself out to be a technology guru. There's a great session here at the library next week that gets at that. Thank goodness this library covers everything. Resources available to help explore different career fields. We'll talk a little bit about that, but I think Julie's our reference librarian, probably is better positioned to help with some of that. How to effectively network. We're going to spend a lot of time on that. How to distinguish oneself from other people in applying for jobs online. Yeah, we're going to talk about that. Those two stories I gave you were ways that I was distinguishing myself, and they go to one of my golden rules. And again, let me preface it by saying this. This isn't about the right way and the wrong way to go after a job, to network, to do whatever you take out of this. It's about right and more right. And what's more right is up to you to decide individually. It's like going to a buffet. You see all this food out there. You might taste all of it. There might be some things you avoid. Some of the things you taste, you're going to have again, and some things you're going to reject. It's the same approach here. But I do want you to hopefully benefit from thinking about things a little differently and figuring out how to apply some of these techniques and integrate them into your own searches, and then opens up other possibilities. My golden rule, which I almost forgot, I never, ever apply for a job that I've seen posted before I've made a contact on the inside. And so we're going to talk about how you make those contacts. Since my job ended last May, I've had about 8 or 9 legitimate interviews. Didn't get a brass ring yet, but there's so many good people out there that you have to tip your hat to the successful candidate. In not one of those did I get an interview as a result of applying. I can tell you how I did that. So we're going to cover a lot of that. And these are things that I've learned because I'm agile. I think I'm an agile learner. I'm really curious about things like this. And these are things that I've tried. Some things haven't worked. So you know what happens? You know, like when you're driving, you bump into something, you back up, and you go around it. Okay, so those are the things we're going to cover. So networking. What's the difference between networking and information? Anybody have a sense? Have you heard both terms? You want to take a stab? I think there's a distinction. For me, an informational interview is where you're going in and you're interviewing somebody in the company to learn more about the company. And it's a pretty transparent effort to look for job ads. Networking is very, very different in the way that I do it, the way I define it. And it's all about reciprocity. So let me tell you what happened when, after 9/11, I was caught up in a major corporate downsizing. So I got that first job I told you about as a result of having to go through it for about a year. And I was new to the Boston area, up in New Hampshire. And I had to start networking. Back then, the internet wasn't a fraction of what it is today. And I didn't know anybody. So how do I start in human resources? Well, in most professional functional areas, there are professional organizations. Engineering has them, product management has them, sales has them, human resources has them. And I was a member. So what did I do? I went to the list of the board of directors. I said to myself, if there's anybody who's going to give me the benefit of a little assistance, it's going to be people who are the board of directors, which are volunteer opportunities serving the human resource community. So that's when I started. I started calling them. Every one of them met with me. I remember the second one I met with, he gave me a list of 200 people. So you can't tell anybody from me, but he gave me a list. But here's some of the things I learned. Because how do you make a networking call? networking on the phone or in person? What do you think? I'd probably give the answer away by what I've said. In person. Why do you think in person as opposed to on the phone if you can?
They see you as a person, they know who you are. It's more of a connection.
Yes. If you meet somebody only on the phone versus meeting them face to face, what's the likelihood in seeing 3 months and 6 months and a year? You're going to remember them from the phone contact versus face to face. Order of magnitude difference. And so my challenge was, how do I get in front of these people? And this is a pitch that I developed over time. I call up Mary and I say, Mary, Mark at such and such a company suggested that I give you a call. He thought you'd be willing to give me the courtesy of about 20 minutes of your time because I'm really interested in expanding my professional network and human resources. And by the way, I'm not asking for a job. This is strictly building my networking circle. I must have gotten 95%. Because subtly, I had overcome 3 objections that people have in not wanting to give a networking meeting to people they don't really know. Number 1, I always use the name of somebody they know. Okay? Because if I say Suzanne thought you'd be willing to give me the courtesy of a few minutes of your time, then there's a connection there. The courtesy. Nobody wants to be discourteous. Okay? I say 20 minutes. What objection is that overcome? Time. Exactly. So, by the way you position, and what was the last thing I said? And I'm not asking you for a job, so I take the pressure off of that. Now, sometimes you're playing phone tag, sometimes you're going through an administrative assistant. I'm not making this up, 95%. And some people would say, how do you know who to go after? Are you going after target companies? Are you going after? This is something you have to decide for yourself. I'm a believer, and this is my own philosophy, that any cornerstone will do. That when the market is this challenging and this difficult, it's good to know companies you want to target because you have to go after them first. But you want to cast as wide a net as possible. Excuse me. And I was much more interested in getting in front of key thought leaders, as we say in human resources, key people who are connected in the human resource function than I was in any particular company. Because truly, I was not asking them for a job. And by the way, why did I not need to ask them for a job?
If they were interested in you and they had that much exposure, that play is in their court.
I'm creating a pull, not a push. That's exactly right. So you don't have to do a hard sell. And so then when I go in to have that meeting with Kim, one of the things I say to her before I come in, I say, would it be helpful if I sent you a resume just so you knew more about me so we could save some time, because I really want to honor the 20 minutes. 99 times out of 100, they say yes. Now, through the initial pitch and through this, they all know that I'm looking for a job. But I've been very graceful about the way I'm easing into it, so I'm not setting up unrealistic expectations for it. And by the way, every time I'm in one of these, I look at my watch at the 20-minute mark. Typically, we're really going well, and they're into it as much as I am. And I say, and I'll say, Ruth, and I promise to keep this at 20 minutes. How are we doing? And 9 times out of 10, Ruth says, let's continue. But what they value and respect in the relationship again is that I didn't forget about my commitment on the front end. Okay? Now, what do you talk about? What I would usually do is start a conversation with them to learn more about them. Again, building a relation. I really want to know. So, David, how long have you been here? How is it different since you've been here? What are some of the major challenges that you face, and what are some of the major projects that you're working on? Or how's the current market for talent affecting you from a retention point of view? Whatever, but they're sort of soft questions, not really tough ones. And then, based upon the response, they'll probably start probing me, tell me a little about you, and we get into this very comfortable dance. We were both learning about each other. We were doing it in a very low-key and graceful way. To me, that's my definition of networking. You don't have to ask for a job. There is a couple of things you do have to ask for, but it's a big missed opportunity. And one thing that you have to offer. What's the offer? At the end, thank you so much for your time. Whether it's today or in the future, is there anything I can do for you? You have no idea how much that offer buys you in goodwill and in reciprocity. You don't know if you can help them or not, but it's the fact that you are offering, and that's the essence of networking. It's reciprocity, it's reciprocal, it's building a relationship. And in terms of the takeaway, there are two other things. Angelo, might there be 2 or 3 other HR leaders who you think would be willing to give you the same kind of courtesy that you gave me today? Hardly ever do I walk out with less than that. Now I'm in. Next day I get home, I call up Taylor. I said, Taylor, I was with Angelo yesterday. He suggested I give you a call because he thought we wouldn't give you the courtesy of 20 minutes of your time. I'm not looking for a job. This really is about building my networking and the resources. And that's how I built my network. This was the days before LinkedIn, before all the social networking sites. Angelo.
Question.
Speak up a little.
During these meetings that you've had with people, has the question ever arose, what are you doing now, or where are you working, and has the perception changed once they find out if you're unemployed?
Not for me, for a couple of reasons. Number one, when I very subtly was able to get my resume to them in advance, and the resume showed that I wasn't working. But number two, it may be different in other functions, although I don't suspect it is actually. But in human resources, certainly. We're talking in code, but everybody knows what we're talking about. But the approach is so, if I can use, I'm brave to say classic, that they value and respect it. So no, that's never really happened. What they may ask, so what do you do? How are you finding the search going? I love that question. I love it. It gets me then to talk a little about myself, what I'm targeting. They'll often then turn it into that type of a question. And the other thing that's real value for me in these networking meetings, it's the leaders that I'm working with who are currently employed. They're the ones who are getting the phone calls from the recruiters on the confidential searches. Or, do you know somebody who? And because I met with them, because I was handing myself a class, I showed them the reciprocity that I'm talking about, that I built the relationship, and because it was face-to-face, and they have my resume electronically, I permission forward it where they want, I've got quite a number of leads. Again, you're building this critical mass. Now, the other takeaway is a tactic that I learned a few years ago. And you can do it through LinkedIn. I like to do it outside of the way. And I'm not an expert on LinkedIn, but we'll talk about it a little. I say to them, I'll say, Suzanne, periodically, I like to send a 1 or 2 paragraph email to my network, just keeping them up to date on how my search is going. I do it for BCC, so nobody sees who else is on the list. Would it be okay if I include you? I've had one person say, I have a couple hundred. And then what do? Once every 2 months, once a quarter, whatever feels right. I get myself back in front of them. I call it Ron's Networking Friends. I send them an email, BCC, so they don't see the others, and I said, I just wanted to update you on how I'm doing and what I'm doing. Sometimes I see a great article, and I send it out to them with a link. I thought you might be interested in this. If it's a couple of months, I say, by the way, I've added some things to my resume, so I'm attaching a current version. Feel free to share it with people who you think might be interested. And by the way, is there anything I can do for you? Always comes back to, and what can I do for you? So you notice in that approach, a couple of things that I did. I made a request. And if you know talk a little about the rules around requests. It's called speech acts. When I make a request of you, you have three choices. You can accept it, it's pretty easy. You can reject it, that's pretty clear. You can try to negotiate with me. But the point is, I didn't leave it open-ended. I made a specific request. Would it be okay if I included you on this periodic? And then I make sure that it's periodic, it's not weekly. You don't want to become a pest. And it's not 3 pages. Sometimes bullets are best and something like that. It buys me incredible visibility, brand awareness. It keeps my name out there fresh. It's an updated resume, and it builds the network because I'm always saying, is there something I can do for you? There's been so many times that people have come back to me months later. I was actually at a meeting a month ago, and I hope this sounds right, but I wanted to share it with you. Somebody came up to me and said, "You're Ron Weisinger. I've never met you, but I've heard about you as a networker, and I've heard how you've helped people, and can you tell me, how do you do it?" We had a little side discussion. It's built up incredible confidence. And so that's what I would encourage all of you to do in thinking different. Questions about?
Could I just move the camera to get a different angle for the next little chunk?
Is that okay?
If we don't know something,
Hold on a second, because I forgot to say, we're taping this, so we're on public access, people
Yeah.
can make it, so I just want them to.
Just want to maybe start with the information maybe to love or
I can hear. What?
I mean that maybe the sound of this
The fans.
could be somewhere
Yeah.
maybe to love.
Great, thank you for this little breather.
I'm flexible. Whenever you're ready.
Ready?
Okay. Ruth?
if you don't know the board of directors or can't find them, how do you find somebody in the agency to talk to start out with?
So give me an
You know,
example.
well,
What are you looking to do?
Because you said that you always start with the name, like this person told me to give you a call.
Well,
And
today,
my other question is, do a lot of people do informational networking or informational,
interviews or
Yeah.
networking interviews.
I mean, it sounds like something HR would do.
And when I get these calls, I always do them because I'm always paying it forward. For those of you who are in other functions, what's your experience? Do people in other functions typically, do they do networking interviews when they get requested?
Well, I'm a nurse, I don't have that experience, but
And in nursing, it's very, very different. There are
Yeah.
agencies, there's such a demand for nurses right now that it's very different. The reason that I've been successful, I think, I don't know for sure, is not so much because I haven't been human resources, but it's because of the way that I anticipated and overcame the reasons why people might not want to give me the courtesy of a few minutes of their time because Angela thought they'd be willing to. So you have to experiment. I didn't figure this out the first time. but I think I did crack the code for me, and it worked. So where do you start? A family member, a former colleague, a former recruiter. You need to start, just get one initial breakthrough, because then you're walking out with 2 or 3. Now, how many people here use the internet for their job search? And how many here are on LinkedIn? LinkedIn is so incredibly powerful. I'll talk a little bit more in a little bit, and there are some handouts about that. Let me just go back over the agenda to see if there's anything that I missed about. Okay, so I've talked about the networking piece. Any other questions about networking?
Yeah, two questions for you. This periodic correspondence that you engage in, is this something you've done over the years then as a result? I mean, once you've sort of made a commitment to do it, I mean, even though you're, the initial impetus may have been to help you find a job, but is this something you've actually maintained over time?
Guilty, Your Honor. No, and I have to kick it up again now. Occasionally I did, and through LinkedIn now it's a lot easier because you can just post something about what you're doing, and it automatically, for those of you who are up on LinkedIn, it automatically then goes to everybody in your contacts group to keep them abreast. So I've done a lot of it that way. But this really worked for me when I was in job search mode, and yes, there's no reason why you couldn't. It's the old axiom, we don't really maintain our networks with the energy and effort that we should until we need to, and then we're almost starting over. It's not as bad as it used to be because of the internet and things like LinkedIn.
One other question too. I know you said one of the takeaways, get the names of at least 1 or 2 other people you can talk to. Is it implicit that you can use a person's name, or do you really need to ask the courtesy? Well, may I use your name when I get in touch with Ms. So-and-so or Mr. So-and-so?
I think it's implicit, but why leave it unclear?
Yeah.
Make the request. Is it okay if I use your name as an introduction? That's what we were asking.
Yeah.
Be explicit so nothing backfires. Other questions about the networking piece? Okay. Let me talk a little about how do you penetrate companies. How do you get noticed without having to apply? Well, you see a job posted, right? You get it from Monster or Indeed or any of the internet sites, or you have a feed from a particular company, you set up a profile, and you set up a little search bot, and when something appears that matches your profile, it's already filed there, it then pings you with, here's the new job. And some of what I'm talking about, for those of you who really up on the internet yet, I apologize for that. And there's plenty of classes about how to do that. I don't think I need. Do I need a mic?
I don't think it would hurt.
Okay. Sure.
Thanks, Julie.
This is the part that gets edited out, right? Refer people to me who I didn't know, now that I think of it. Somebody will call me and say, Steve said that it's my own pitch almost, or something close to that, and 100% of the time, I find time for that. 100% of the time. Come to my office. What's half an hour? The other reason I said 20 minutes, nobody schedules appointments on 20 minutes. Everybody's scheduling on a half hour or a full hour, so you have a little bit of slack. But by saying 20 minutes, you've really made it that much easier for them to accept it. Don't hurry. How close do I need to hold this to me? How close do I need to hold it?
Come a little closer.
A little closer? Like this? Okay, so we were talking about how to penetrate a company. What do you do when you see an online posting, Monster, whatever? So the initial inclination is, I'm going to apply. Ron's golden rule was never until you made an inside connection. So how do you make an inside connection? Well, the first question is, who do you want to make the inside connection with? What's the universe of people that you can think of that would be good to try to connect with for this job in supply chain or in engineering or in marketing or in sales?
Hiring manager.
The hiring manager. Who else?
Somebody in the functional area that you're interested in.
That's the hiring manager or in the functional area.
Oh, I see. Okay, in your case, the hiring.
Yeah,
HR.
I'm asking all of you if it was you and you saw a job in your functional area. So the hiring manager, absolutely. That's the mother of it. Who else?
HR.
Yeah, me. Yeah, because usually the hiring manager has HR running the interference. So how do you do it? Well, LinkedIn is incredible. Because if you know how to use it, you can do a search and see who it is. Who are the people on LinkedIn working in that company in the functional area? And then you'll get results back, and you'll see are they first generation contact, which means you already know them. Are they second generation? LinkedIn is all about the 6 degrees of separation. So if they're second generation, it means Angelo is a direct contact of mine. I don't know Suzanne, who's in the company, but Angelo and Suzanne are directly connected. So I can go through Angelo and say, do you do all the time? How well do you know Suzanne? Would you mind letting her know that I'd like to call her, or maybe yet would you send her my resume and let her know to expect my call and say some sweet things about me? You know, I walk on water and just get my ankles wet. That's why I got every one of these interviews. Now, if I can't figure it out, what are some other creative ways? Well,
Call and ask.
you call the switchboard, because they don't give out extensions or names anymore, but you say, yeah, marketing department, please. And typically who picks up when you get the marketing department? Yeah, the secretary or an admin. And you say, you know, I saw the position for product manager. I wanted to send my resume in, but I wasn't sure who the correct spelling of the hiring manager's name. It works almost every time. And is her extension 4322? No, it's 7561. You know, they gave me the wrong number. Thank you very much. You do what you have to do to be creative. Or, human resources, please. What I've done is, I go to my professional organization that I belong to for human resources, and I can do a search of all the HR people who work at this company. And I'll see if I know any of them. Maybe I'll cross-reference it with LinkedIn, but if I don't, I'll just call the first one. And I'll say, Kim, this is Ron Weisinger. I'm a fellow NEAR member, New England Human Research Association. I was calling for the courtesy of 2 minutes of your time. That word comes up a lot, right? Nobody wants to be discourteous. I said, I really wanted to apply or find out who the hiring manager is and speak to them, but I didn't want to waste anybody's time. If I wasn't really a legitimate candidate, could you tell me a little about the job? Very often, because they usually know, for positions that I'm going for, from speaking to an HR rep or an HR generalist, they tell me about the job. So what are they really looking for? I have the job description here, but I know that doesn't really tell a story what's really important. Can you tell me what are the key deliverables? What are the key skills they're really looking for? And she tells me. And I said, and so this is reporting to, I missed that, reporting to Harry. Could you give me Harry's number? Because I'd love to speak to him. She gives it to me, and I call Harry, and I say, Harry, this is Ron Weisinger. Kim suggested that I give you a call. And I'm speaking to Harry as the hiring manager. Or if I have to go through HR, or if that doesn't work, if you are wanting to contact HR, just ask for the switchboard. The switchboard puts you through to HR. You say, you're calling to talk with the HR person who's handling the recruiting for the product manager position. Now, sometimes they'll try to refer you back to the website, and that's where you say, you know, I know that there's a transactional cost to collecting resumes and having to report them for affirmative action purposes. And I don't want to saddle you guys with a piece of paper if I'm not even going to be in the game. I wondered if there's somebody I could talk to for just 2 minutes, because I'm really networked, and if I'm not right, I may be able to help you identify real strong candidates that, by the way, aren't going to have any recruiting fees associated with them. What am I doing? I'm giving them something of value. I'm saving them a transaction. So again, these are all techniques that you sort of have to prepare and anticipate and have. I used to have them out on index cards in front of me, different scenarios. And after a while, you don't even need them to get that good. What are other ways to penetrate? How many here have attended a college or university? Okay, so you're an alumni, right? Call the alumni office. There's hardly a college or university today that doesn't have a means or a mechanism of hooking you up, of doing a search to find out if there are any alum, any graduating here, any major, who are working at the company where the job is. Now, why do you want that information? Sometimes they'll give it to you, and sometimes they have to get permission to give it to you. But usually, because you're an alum, one way or another you'll get it. But why is that valuable? Because I finally call up Terry. And Terry graduated in a different major 10 years apart from me. And I said, Terry, this is Ron Weisinger. I'm a fellow alum from Rutgers, Michigan State. I said, you know, there's this really interesting HR opportunity in your company. I'm really interested in applying for it. And then I recalled that your company has an employee referral system, doesn't it? Terry says, yeah. And I said, and there's a bounty for you if I get hired. Terry says, yeah. So I said, I'm wondering, if I send you my resume, would you be willing to look at it and submit it through the employee referral system for me? What is Terry going to say? It's worked every time because there's a little pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, and sometimes Terry says, oh yeah, you know, this must be reporting to the VP of HR. I know him or her. I'm going to go down and deliver it personally. Or my boss is close to him, and I'm going to go down and speak to them in addition. And by the way, Terry, is there something I can do for you? It always comes back to that. So that's another way to get your resume in to penetrate. Another thing I've done, that list, the email list that I have, where I send the periodic updates, this is, in the days before LinkedIn, and even now, it's really proved invaluable. I'll broadcast to everybody, BCC, blind copy. There's a really interesting job at blank company. Does anybody know anybody there? I get 2 or 3 pings. Yes, I know such and such. And then the connection's being facilitated. That's why for the 8 or 9 interviews I've had this summer, now eventually you gotta go online because they want to get you in the system. Big deal. Not one of those did I get an interview through applying online. I first penetrated the company, made the connection on the inside. So think about your own situations, the type of job you have or are going after, whether you're going after a career track job, whether you're going after an office job, or you're going after a non-office job. How can some of these techniques, how can some of these approaches work? That's what you have to figure out, because you know that better than I do.
Okay,
Kim?
I have one. Sometimes you see an ad in the newspaper and it'll say no calls, or it'll say just to send your resume to an email address. It doesn't give the name of the company or anything. How do I find someone in?
Two things. Number one, you can't, I don't think. And number two, in terms of your job search energy, the portfolio of things that you're doing, spending time on a job search, let me ask this as a general question. What are the buckets of activity and percentages you think you should be putting around in terms of how you're looking for work? Anybody want to take a guess?
60% network. 60%.
Yeah, maybe even more. How much time should you spend, ideally, internet, newspapers, trade magazines, etc.?
Maybe 10.
Anybody else? That's, again, there's no right answer here, but
Repeat, if you would, repeat those numbers people suggested.
this is my own suggestion. I think if you're spending more than 5% of the overall effort you're putting into a job search, simply looking at the internet and your newspapers, well, the newspapers today, that's why you know the Globe is being sold off because their advertising revenues are down. Very few things are posted in the newspaper, and I don't know what your career area is, and you don't have to say, but you may be limiting yourself in more ways. So maybe sending messages that if you don't have to search for a job on the internet, that you don't have the skills that they're looking for to work in whatever the function is. Looking for a job when you're out of work is literally a 40-hour, if not more, a week activity. And that's why I said when I was, back a few years ago, I haven't quite eased into it yet this time around. I chose to take the summer and enjoy myself for a change. But it's really a full-time job, and I was seeing on the average of 2, sometimes 3 a day, 5 days a week. And then I was going back and I was writing my follow-up emails, 2 or 3 sentences. Thank you so much. I really appreciate the courtesy of your time. I especially am appreciative of the names that you gave me. And as I said when we ended, I hope you won't hesitate to let me know, whether it's today or at some point in the future, of how I could be of some help to you in return. Always doing that. And then I'm building the network, and it's generative. Other questions?
I have a question. Do you have any recommendations or success stories that you know about how volunteer work can help people find jobs?
I was thinking about that exact question before I came in, wondering if it was going to be asked. My initial, you mean volunteer work for the function or a particular company, or just volunteering in general and getting your name out there in something that has nothing to do with what you're going after, but you have some time?
Well, preferably something, for which you're qualified and interested in working in the future. But I think I've heard recommendations, articles in the paper, whatnot, as one way to spend your time while you're working for a point. As a way to meet people, as a way to network, as a way to get more experience.
Offering to volunteer for a company that you want to get some experience in that function.
Yeah, or in my case, I work for a nonprofit, so we do have volunteers. And I think that is what I was thinking more in terms of nonprofits.
Okay. Absolutely, from a networking point of view, it opens up so many possibilities. Just think, you're going to start meeting people, right? And then you start building the tree. On the corporate side, the reason I anticipated the question is because I have a different kind of response, and it's going to sound awful bureaucratic and legalistic. I can't accept a volunteer. It's liabilities. Because you're not on the payroll. If you get hurt, you do something, my insurance doesn't cover you, you're not covered under workers' comp, so I can't have you doing any volunteer work. And there's also Fair Labor Standard Act issues. in terms of pay for work and things like that. So it's getting a little technical, but most companies today that are good at risk management from an HR point of view, they can't take volunteers. When I worked at Bristol Myers Squibb as an example. They had a college intern program. Well, we had to go through 5 pages of legal documents that were signed by the school stating that this was an academic internship over the summer and that they were covered for liability reasons under the school's policy and all of that, and we had this legal arrangement worked out. And interns are a little different in that respect. You can usually work them out with some degree of risk management. But for the rest of us who've already been in school, I think it's really hard in the corporate setting just to go in and volunteer. But in a professional organization, I'm doing it right now. My professional organization has their annual conference coming up. It's about $400 to attend. I'm not sure I can afford it. I know the executive director from networking. I know him pretty well. In fact, he and I, a few years ago, when I was out of work, we co-chaired the professional development committee of this organization. I'm going in and making phone calls to people in the organization, reminding them about the upcoming conference. I got a freebie. So again, volunteering is a great way, again, to build visibility, to market yourself, to build your brand, and start making that network true. Absolutely.
Could you say more about one's brand as a professional?
There's a lot written today on the internet and the blogs about what's your personal brand. Mine's on my business card. My brand is change management, employee development, and leadership coaching. That's the essence of where I add a lot of value. I'm not an expert in the area, but it's all about coming up with some conscious, I think, tagline or essence of what it is that describes you professionally, what it is you want to be known for, and how you build it. I found a graphic designer. It was not expensive at all. She came up with that logo. The concept was mine. It's now a signature in my emails, so whenever my emails go out, that exact business card is at the bottom of my email. It's on my LinkedIn. Everybody now is starting to know me as development links. That's what I want, because I want them to know that my niche, my expertise, is employee and leadership development. I'm going to be posting on LinkedIn some of the tools I've created for managers and supervisors that help them become better managers and supervisors. You can do that on LinkedIn. Maybe other questions, because I'm going to jump a little into LinkedIn and some of the resources in your packet. Give me a second to put my glasses on and see what else I wanted to make sure. Let me talk a little about sharing job leads. A lot of people think that, gee, I'm getting this interview next week. I can't tell anybody about it. Or a recruiter called me and he said it's a confidential search. And, well, I'm not going to tell anybody about it because if I do, what could happen? Yeah, create competition. My personal point of view, it's a myth. Let me tell you why. Number one, in today's information age, with the internet and everything else, there's no such thing as a confidential search. The word gets out very quickly. Number two, there's a lot of good talent out there for what I do, for I'm sure what a lot of you do. And at the end of the day, it's not only about the particular skills and competencies you have, but it's also about the fit. And that's a very amorphous thing. That's when you go through interviews. And I'm a big believer that I'm going to get the job if I'm right for the job, the right fit, regardless of what the competition is. And so, to me, it's a real myth to try to hoard leads. And in my networking group, I shocked people because I got a call from a recruiter 3 days ago. I have an interview tomorrow. And and he said he found my resume on the internet. They're not posting it. It's a confidential search. And I had a long call with him, and he invited me in Friday. I sent out an email to my networking group. It's a closed group through LinkedIn, so only they can get it. Started with, do not use my name, because it's confidential. Gave him the recruiter's name, his email, the company, the job, what I think it's going to be paying. And I said, have at it. How does that serve me?
They might do that for you. They'll do that for you.
Yeah, Susan said, they'll do it for me. That's exactly it. Karma, pay it forward. It pays off in the long run. And that's how I built this sort of reputation, the little one I have, about someone who's looking to help others. It does pay off. If I'm right for the job, I'm going to get it. If I'm not right for the job and there's somebody who's better, I also know enough that the process is going to figure that out. There's no such thing as confidential searches, competition. You're going to have competition anyhow. You're going to have it anyhow. Why not get something out of it? And building your own network. Okay, let me see where else we are, and then we can talk about some of the handouts and LinkedIn. Let's talk a little about the resume. I'm not diving deep into that because there are scores of workshops you can go to. You can go on the internet. But one big rule of thumb, a resume, everything in your resume should be about your accomplishments. And here's the distinction I'm making. Activities versus accomplishments. Okay? What do I mean by an accomplishment? Every bullet in your resume ought to be connected to accomplishments that fall into one of 5 different areas. And this applies to any type of job, any career level, any function. You save money, you save time, you solve problems, you generate new revenue, incremental, or you improve quality. Save money, save time, solve problems, generate new money, and improve quality. And I don't care what jobs you've had, and what function you're in, and what career level. Everything you've been doing, I'm fairly certain, with a little bit of thought and some help sometimes, you can articulate it in terms of results and impacts. Okay, so go back and look at your resume. Now, if you have a lot of stuff in there about what your responsibilities were, I'm not saying take that out, but how can you shift that, evolve it into the impact I made in fulfilling that responsibility? That's what really differentiates you, helps differentiate you, big time. People's, you see at the top of resumes, career objective. My own personal point of view, you're wasting ink. Career objective doesn't add value. If you want to put in a summary of what you're all about, your personal brand, fine. I have 5 or 6 lines at the top that say about what my unique skills are, some of my training certifications, my background. It's like an executive summary of who I am. That's okay. But to put in career objective, I think that's kind of anachronistic. I don't think it really serves you. Today, the conventional wisdom is 2 pages for a resume. Mine's 3, but I got a 20-year career, and believe me, I could make it 5. A year ago, it was 4 pages, and I cut a lot of junk out. Sometimes it's hard to let go of that stuff, but I did. Personal interests. It's personal. It's a so what. I'm speaking as an HR guy. Your resume ought to be about how you're going to help drive their business. The interviews where if they're interested, they'll ask, so what do you do for fun? Okay, save the space, use it for things that are more value added. Typos. Shame on us if we have typos in there. Spell check. Formatting. Shame on us if it's not formatted perfectly. If you need help with that, we can all find people who are really good at Word and get templates and things like that. Now, at 95% of what we need, I think, you get through the basic. Yeah, I have. And LinkedIn right now is my primary platform. It's incredibly powerful. It's incredible. Every job I see out there, I am able to find a connection, either one removed or two removed, but I do it 100% of the time.
Do you have any feelings about the number of recommendations you essentially received?
You want me to hold this for the tape? Because we're on? Okay. I was in a networking group, and these guys wrote this book called Career Crossroads. This is the '01 edition. It's a new one, and its whole focus is subtitled Directory to Job, Resume, and Career Management Sites on the Web. And Julie actually has a couple of their workbooks here. A lot of this you might be able to get just through online searching if you're comfortable with Google or anything like that. But this one's really good too. So that's my quick plug. So getting back to a cover letter. I don't know. When I do one, I'll do it in the body of an email because I figured out how to penetrate it. Identify the decision maker. And I'm not going through the websites. I've already connected, and I'll use that. And it's a pretty powerful one. Because what it's really doing is it's showing that you know how to approach something difficult and make it simple. Problem solving. It's a little bit innovative, and it really makes things simple for them. Your requirements, how I match. So that's the one that I can really recommend to you. Okay, I'm going to go through some of the other handouts here. The white one, the Gordon Heckler networking method. I pulled this off the web. It came up to me in one of the groups, one of the blogs I'm signed up for. I found it striking that he's talking about a lot of things I'm talking about, but there was just so much good information here. I just wanted you to have it at work and you're looking for a job. Ask yourself this question: what's my own personal definition of success for the next 30 days? Think about that for a second. Anybody want to offer theirs? How would you define success in the job search over the next 30 days?
Define who your network is.
Define who your network is. Good. What
Who
else?
you know in the field.
Who you know.
Yeah.
Anybody else want to offer?
To obtain actual, just maybe one or two face-to-face interviews.
Take 1 or 2 face-to-face interviews. Why do you think I'm asking that question to start with? What I was going to say is if you don't know where you're going and you will get there. So the same thing. So you have to have a plan. I've done a lot of coaching, and when I ask this question, the response that I often get is to get a job. I'll take a step back and say, how much control do you have over that as a time? Very little, really. There's all sorts of factors, starting with you don't make the hiring decision. And so the question was trying to get at the fact that you don't want to set up unrealistic expectations for yourself, because then it's easy to feel as if you're failing. When I was really in full court press mode, my personal objective was networking. And I was actually meeting in person with an average of 2 people a day, 5 days a week, because it's a full-time job to do that. It really is a full-time job. So, I asked you to fill out an index card with some information. I wanted to get a sense of how many of us are working, how many aren't. We have a mix here. Your functional areas, and they range from supply chain, I think, to finance, other people getting into, I think, sheet metal construction, probably getting that wrong. Most of what I'm talking about is really focused on exempt professional career track positions, not because other positions are less meaningful, but that's where my experience is. Hopefully, if you're looking for a position that isn't in that area, there's still going to be some takeaways that you can use. But let me tell you some of the questions that I got. The question I asked, one key takeaway that you hope to get: how to find leads at good companies. We'll talk about that. New tools unknown to me to find a job. Hopefully, cover some of that. How to market myself. Yes. By the way, what am I doing right now?
Marketing yourself as a consultant.
I'm marketing myself. And what's it costing me?
Your time,
And what's the biggest commodity I have right now?
yourself, your
My
relationship.
time. Yeah, and I'm building relationships. Strategies to help the job search, use of new technology methods. We'll talk a little about that. I don't hold myself out to be a technology guru. There's a great session here at the library next week that gets at that. Thank goodness this library covers everything. Resources available to help explore different career fields. We'll talk a little bit about that, but I think Julie's our reference librarian, probably is better positioned to help with some of that. How to effectively network. We're going to spend a lot of time on that. How to distinguish oneself from other people in applying for jobs online. Yeah, we're going to talk about that. Those 2 stories I gave you were ways that I was distinguishing myself, and they go to one of my golden rules. And again, let me preface it by saying this. This isn't about the right way and the wrong way to go after a job, to network, to do whatever you take out of this. It's about right and more right. And what's more right is up to you to decide individually. It's like going to a buffet. You see all this food out there. You might taste all of it. There might be some things you avoid. Some of the things you taste, you're going to have again, and some things you're going to reject. It's the same approach here. But I do want you to hopefully benefit from thinking about things a little differently and figuring out how to apply some of these techniques and integrate them into your own searches, and then opens up other possibilities. My golden rule, which I almost forgot, I never, ever apply for a job that I've seen posted before I've made a contact on the inside. And so we're going to talk about how you make those contacts. Since my job ended last May, I've had about 8 or 9 legitimate interviews. Didn't get a brass ring yet, but there's so many good people out there that you have to tip your hat to the successful candidate. In not one of those did I get an interview as a result of the talk. I have to tell you, I did that. So we're going to cover a lot of that. And these are things that I've learned because I'm agile. I think I'm an agile learner. I'm really curious about things like this. And these are things that I've tried. Some things haven't worked. So you know what happens? You know, like when you drive and you bump into something, you back up and you go around. Okay.